Hello everyone and welcome to our webinar. I'm Valentin Radu and this guy over here is Justin. Although we've switched the names, that's who we are.
It's a little test on names there here today. Okay, so I'm going to try and share my screen here.
Hello everyone and welcome to our webinar. I'm Valentin Radu and this guy over here is Justin. Although we've switched some delay, but I hope now it's working.
Yeah, okay. So can you see my screen here, everybody? Valentin, can you see my screen?
Yeah, everything is fine.
Perfect. So I'm going to get started. I'm really sorry for everybody. We said we would start at 4 o'clock today, and it's actually 4:12 now. So I'm terrible. I'm on the East Coast, so I know it's different times around the globe for you. This is the first of many webinars that we'll be running, and they will be on time in the coming months. We won't have a repeat of this again. But today, I really wanted to talk to you guys all about, the top 7 A/B testing mistakes that pros make. I've made these mistakes when I started out, and people still make them today. And I just really, really want to make sure that you all don't do this yourself. So I'm going to get started here. And so the first thing that people really kind of screw up when they are testing is they actually have no clear hypothesis. And really, if you don't have a hypothesis, you're not even testing anymore. There's no scientific rigor to what you're doing. You're simply just guessing and hoping for the best. And you really don't want to be doing that. So, as I was saying, a hypothesis is really 100% crucial. A guess is really just throwing spaghetti at the wall and trying to see what sticks. One thing that actually really kind of is a pet peeve of mine is I know the concept of always be testing is very important, but always be testing well. So don't just test for the sake of testing. If you're not testing without some underlying goal or reason or rationale, then you're really not going to learn a whole heck of a lot. And really you need to be asking yourself like what to change, then ask why should I be changing this? And then more importantly, you need to be asking yourself how does this impact my business goals? So I think one of the best things you can do when you're developing a hypothesis is to put it in this particular format. We believe that changing A for visitors B will make C happen. Now, I added in that visitors B section mainly because when we're testing and when we're looking at different sets of traffic, there's all sorts of different subsets that we can segment out. So those things are to keep in mind when you build up your testing program, and that not all traffic is alike. We could really just say we believe that changing A will make C happen, but I think you need to get a bit more particular. To get particular now, to give you an example, a concrete example, you could say that we believe that changing the call to action copy on this landing page for new visitors will increase lead form submissions. If you can't put your test goal or your test hypothesis into this format, you need to start over from scratch and just think about what you're doing a bit more thoroughly. If you have a team member that wants to test something and they don't send it to you in this format, throw it right back at them and have them rewrite it in a format that is something that they can prove that also has a reason as to why they want to be proving it. See, when you're running... Yep, go ahead.
Here is like, if you don't have a reason, why should you wake up in the morning? So basically, you always have to have a reason before acting. So this is how the A/B testing, I think, works as well. So basically, you have to have an objective and you have to have a hypothesis to start some kind of action.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think with testing too is there's multiple scenarios that can happen when you're testing. You could win, which is great. You just saw a lift in conversions, but you really don't know why, which is problematic. You could lose, and if you lose money for your company and you don't know why, you might be also losing your job, or your test will flatline, which happens a lot where there is no significant change, and you have to try and then figure out why as well. But if you haven't done your due diligence and created a solid hypothesis, you're not going to be able to. So cool, we see these two click here buttons, a red versus a purple, and maybe there's a 17% click-through rate. But if I just did that without kind of doing my work and creating a solid hypothesis beforehand, who really cares? So remember that when you're developing your test, not to just test for the sake of testing. That's the worst thing you could be doing. You need to test for a reason in order to see those large gains that you see all over the web in different case studies. All right, number 2. This one is that tests are called way too early. And Valentin, you've probably seen this a fair amount, have you?
Yeah, sure. So, because I think that's because of people are anxious to apply the findings and the good results that they are seeing. I think that's the reason number one, because they are stopping too early. What do you think? Do you think that's the reason, or?
Oh, definitely. I think a lot of people start off kind of call the test early because they get really excited. They're like, oh, in a few days we've seen this great lift. We might as well just run with it. But that's the worst thing you can do, because your sample size, your sample of visitors are very volatile. Things like time and other factors can come into play that might impact the conversions. So the first thing I like to tell people is you need to be smarter than your testing tech. A WitchTest1 study found that a quarter of surveyed marketers call a test as soon as the tech indicates there is a winning variation. So here's that chart right there, where you see 25% that as soon as you get that green light. Others, 26% wait a full week, 29% wait 14 days, 8% 21 days, 5% 22 plus days, and then 7%, which I think was a perfect question to ask, was testing cycles are consistent with their business cycles or their sales cycle. They like to try and keep those things in line, not to miss out on anything. But that 25% that do it as soon as it indicates, that's what's problematic. A few days just isn't enough. And so in this example, there's 11 total days here, which actually could be enough in some cases, and I'd also tell you to generally round up the days to complete the weeks. But you can see the volatility here. It's still not leveling out to a great rate just yet. So you do need to allow some levels of, at the very beginning you'll see that there's a lot of volatility, mainly because your visitors, particularly returning visitors, might be acting in a different way since they're trying to relearn the changes that are happening on the site. That's something called the primacy effect there. But you need to just get more than just a few days here. You need to actually be able to run it during particular business cycles. So moving forward from here, you don't complete the week. And as I said up here, we saw a nice 11-day spread. And in this case, if you were scheduling or forecasting and you were getting to the 11-day mark, I'd recommend just running the test for a complete 14. And I'll go into that a little bit further. So the first reason you want to do this is you want to look at the conversions by the day of the week. So go into your analytics platform, and hopefully you have your goals set up and they're connected to your revenue. If you haven't done that yet, you have a chore this weekend or next week when you get into the office is to do that, because you're flying blind. But look at the difference between the days of the week there in terms of what one type of revenue comes through. So different people act differently on different days of the week. I think that's a very simple thing to overlook because it just seems so obvious. But remember that when you're scheduling tests to complete that full week when you're doing it. So strictly speaking, time is really a tricky beast. And the best way to take time out of the equation is to test during an entire period. So as I said, here I have an example of, say, you have an existing conversion rate of 10%. You're expecting improvement in conversion rates 20%, only 2 variations. Your average number of daily visitors, let's say 1,000. You want a 95% level confidence. This says, well, you'll need this many number of visitors based on this average daily value. They tell you it'll take 12 days to do. In that case, round it up to the 14. Please, please, please. I can't stress that enough. And the pro tip here is when you're testing your cycle should be in line with your sales cycle. Different conversion experts will push for you trying to go for at least 2 sales cycles to maintain validity. But sometimes I know at businesses you have to be a bit more pragmatic, which we are a business. We're not a research institution in some regards, as much as we'd like to be. So find something that works for you at your org, but really do follow kind of that complete the week rule. What do you think about that rule, Valentin?
Well, I've seen many tests because there are many testers here, and what I've seen that if you are looking to analytics in order to see if you are selling fashion, for example, the business cycle is much more small than if you are, I don't know, selling some big machines or a car. Because basically it has to do with the time you need to decide and to come from the phase where you are considering a purchase and the phase that you are actually decided and go over there and buy it. So you need to go to analytics and to see the time it has for a visitor to convert. So after you see this thing, I think you should multiply it by 2 and then see what you got. Let the test run, because it's not about putting a failure as a default version, as an original version, but it has to do about you learning how to do A/B testing, and it has to do about applying winners and not almost winners or losers on the long run.
Yeah, and you brought up a great point there with the differential in sales cycles. Particularly when you have like these larger B2B companies who have these massively long sales cycles. I've done some work with companies that sell industrial-sized printers that print the numbers on eggs for when they are going to expire, and those are a longer sales cycle. So generally, when you're doing something like that, you'd probably be working on qualified leads and working through that cycle for what you're trying to do from like maybe a top funnel mentality. So understand your individual kind of where you stand in terms of your business cycle, and then line up your tests to be consistent with that. And so round up for the 14 days. So for number 4, that people are just simply testing in the wrong places. And people who are familiar with me and know my background, I'm a massively involved with A/B testing. I'm a major testing evangelist. But people should be testing on the right pages. If you're testing on pages that either have too little traffic or really aren't test worthy, you're wasting your time and you're not going to impact the bottom line. So as I was saying, not all pages are actually test worthy. Unworthy pages include low traffic pages, so ones that won't reach statistical significance in a timely manner. Like, I don't like to run tests for more than 5 weeks. If they're going to be more than 5 weeks, there's definitely a better test I can be running in that time that can impact the bottom line. So there are also different pages or campaigns with volatile traffic. So maybe an example of this would be maybe a landing page that you're using a media buy that you haven't thought about too much, and you're running a test on it, and then your PR team comes back to you and says, oh, well, the reason you're seeing an influx in traffic is because we did a TV ad or a radio ad, or we added a new piece of traffic in there. That would actually negate your test results because it would dilute everything that was going on with new untested traffic. And then also overly targeted segments. The term segmentation, you are literally taking from the whole. You're segmenting things out. So if you look at your entire population of visitors as your whole, when you do any sort of advanced segmentation, you're cutting down on the number of possible tested visitors that you could be working with. So if you're doing some very highly targeted personalization campaigns, these might not be test-worthy pages. You'll probably have to take some tangential data and make some decisions there. So those are some unworthy pages / campaigns that you could think about. If you're newer to testing, the bottoms-up approach is something that I've thought worked really well. You work as close to the conversion activity that's connected to your bottom line, whether it be sales qualified leads, actual sales on an e-commerce site. So working lower and then moving up, kind of doing regressive analysis. One of the things that I found why this works so well is generally like the top funnel pages, including home pages and definitely some campaign pages and different landing pages, are highly politically charged. People like them for a certain reason. So even if you can start testing on those, the branding police are going to come after you and not let you do exactly what you want to do. So I think kind of the less sexy lower funnel pages that are really the most important pages are places that you can take a look at. These types of pages include your cart, your checkout pages, thank you pages. If you aren't optimizing your thank you pages for getting future sales, doing some upsells right there, or trying to push some more information from people if you're doing lead generation, you are doing yourself a major, major disservice, and start working there. People are super excited after they purchase something with you. They've kind of scratched that consumer itch, so to say, and they've completed something. Give them more breadcrumbs and try to get a little bit more out of them. And then kind of just deeper funnel pages in general are ones to take a look at. And here's really why I really push this. These people are your most qualified traffic altogether. They've jumped through all your hurdles, maybe even all your mistakes from your top funnel pages, and they've made it all the way to the bottom. Bring them home.
These are the best performers, actually, because they've made it through all your barriers that you've put and you don't know, you're not aware of, and yeah, that's a very good point, Justin.
Thank you. And I really can't stress this enough. I've seen so many people talk about a top-down approach or kind of a more sporadic approach, but if you're new or you have a maturing program, kind of look deeper into your conversion funnel to see kind of where the drop-off is and work there, because these are your most qualified visitors to your site, and also it's much easier to calculate the value of these conversions. You don't have to do any sort of funky work. So I really push for that.
Okay, now, so Justin, I have a question here. So
yep.
Let's suppose I'm new in doing A/B testing, and you are proposing this bottom-up approach, and you are proposing to take a look at my funnel and to go there and start from there, to go where the best performers visitors are. So what should I do? Like with 3 steps. I have the funnel. Where should I go?
Where should you go? I'd say first check your go to your cart. when you know the funnel, like start low as low as you can, and go into your cart and start and analyze within your analytics with like what's going on in the cart, what your abandonment rate is, your bounce rate, what pages people are coming in from, so you'd understand. So from there, you'll know your popular products that people are coming from, and understanding their path altogether. That's for future tests. But I say start in that cart immediately and start running some tests to try and find, doing some also analysis of why they're leaving. Maybe do some qualitative work with some surveys, or maybe an exit pop if someone's trying to leave and abandon the cart. Be like, hey, why are you doing this? Or do you want us to save this for you? Or things like that to try and catch conversions, catch abandons to try to get them to convert. So I'd say if you're in e-commerce and you're new to testing, start testing in your cart.
Okay, so you think in e-commerce that's the first place to go for, yeah?
Yep.
I think one important thing here, it's I've seen many people which are starting to do A/B testing and they abandon because in a few weeks they become disappointed. And one thing is that I think they are not into educating themselves, but they are into having an instant gratification. Mm-hmm. And I think going there at the cart page allows them to go for a quick win. At least if they can come up with a good hypothesis, like for example, what we've seen a very good test, like near the checkout button, they've put the return policy, like no worries, return in 10 days. And it was a very good test from a beginner in our platform. So I think it's, as you've said, it's important to go to the cart page. It's important to have the analytics and to have a good hypothesis. But starting with this also allows you to go further by educating yourself as a conversion rate optimization expert.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think especially when people start, it's so easy to. Especially when you have a loss or even a flat line at the beginning of your campaigns, really to kind of you feel the hurt. I've had that happen when I've worked with other companies where our first test hasn't really gone as well as I'd like it to go. But when you kind of go after these low-hanging fruit areas, you're almost guaranteed to see some kind of lift there. And I don't want to say like you're always like I don't want to say it's a guarantee, but these are the higher percentage areas. I think the cart page, if you don't want to stay super low in the funnel, I'd say even maybe even just a particular product page template. Another big one would be any sort of search results page.
Yeah.
That search results pages are, those are, I think, are some of the most interesting tests you can run are on the search results, and that's probably one of the most crucial areas of your website when people interact with your site and are actually getting involved with search.
Yeah, we actually have a test by a fashion e-commerce website which increased almost by half the revenue by doing some exit pop-up with okay, search now, filter the results based on your measure.
Yeah, and those are just really clever ways to keep people in your funnel, and I think that works out really well.
Okay, Justin, so let's go further, I think.
Yep, so we talked a little bit about digging into analytics to find page inspiration. So say you're a little bit more refined, look at the pages and start looking at some of these stats, particularly one of the things, I listed some of the major pages I like to take a look at when I do an audit for people. But another thing I like to look at is putting the numbers in context. I'm really big into connecting the numbers to the actual story they're telling, because if you're not doing that as an optimization person, well, you're really not a great optimization person, really, or analyst at all. So put these numbers in context. For example, if one page gets a lot of exits, which is, by standard definition, people have viewed more than one page, but it isn't the last piece of content, such as a thank you page, you should really start investigating why, seeing if there's a content mismatch, or maybe their behavior is a little wonky within the template. Maybe you have a call to action, confusion, all sorts of things should be happening there. But that's one of the key things I like to look at when something has high exit rates but isn't the end of content. So that's one of my key pieces I look at when I do audits.
Yeah.
So the next thing here we have is you're testing just stupid elements. There are tons and tons of different elements that you can test on a particular page. And I said earlier that if you're testing without a hypothesis, you're just guessing. And if you're not using any sort of research into figuring out what elements to test on those pages that you identify, that's almost as bad as testing without a hypothesis, because you're just kind of, again, throwing something against the wall and hoping it works. Maybe you've identified this perfect page that you digging through, like, oh, I have a major exit rate on my cart, and I don't know why, so I'm just going to change everything, or I'm just going to add an image here, or you need to figure out what elements to change based on the behavior. And the way to figure out behavior isn't just by going through analytics. You have to use qualitative research to identify these test elements. These things include eye tracking, user surveys, click tracking, user testing, looking at scroll maps. Anything like that will give you more insights into why people are acting the way they are when you see it in the analytics. So the analytics show you what's happening, and the qualitative is going to give you the why.
Yeah. I have a good thing here that I've seen a good test with a good hypothesis. So based on an exit survey for the cart page, a customer in Home and Garden found out that people weren't buying trees on his website. So why is that? They think that, okay, people are not going to buy trees and that's it. But after the surveys they've made for this category, they found out that people weren't getting enough information about how tall the trees could grow, about what the species, and all those things that matter for a person which actually wants to buy from online such a thing, because it's not like a standard object. You are buying an iPhone and you know what, that's an iPhone. So based on that, they've made another test by putting some criteria about the trees, how tall, how whatever, and their conversion lift dramatically.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of people that use their qualitative research to drive conversions, and I love when I hear stories like that. I've seen it, and it's really just again common sense. A lot of this stuff that happens in conversion rate optimization does fall under the kind of the common sense rule, and it's really about checking your ego at the door and realizing that you're not your own customer, and you do need to ask them what they're looking for and what they want, and ease them through the process as much as possible.
Yeah.
And so when you're looking at other things you can do within your within the quantitative aspects of things is try to identify user segments with the kind of geolocation. Particularly, I saw a test once that was run that they were it was a clothing site, and they needed to they put a dynamic insertion based on GeoIP that said we ship to such and such country, wherever you're logging in from. So you know immediately that you were able to receive the goods, and you don't have to go through browsing, and then when you get to the cart you find out, oh, they can't send anything to me, and then you're all mad and you have a bad experience with the brand. Other things you can look at would be session activity, including length, exit pages, etc. Number of pages looked at, what pages were looked at in sequence. Those are other ways you can actually trigger some cool ways to interact with the visitors as well.
Yeah.
So I think one of the biggest mistakes that we see is that people think significance, so statistical significance, means validity, and that's not the case. So statistical significance in the way that we're using it is the percent chance that the documented change is not due to randomness, but due to a change between the variations. So in this case, a 95% statistical significance means that there is a 5% possibility that the changes you saw are a false positive. So they didn't actually, the change isn't due to the difference between the variations. It's just randomness. And at a 95% confidence level, that means 1 in 20 of your tests will be a false positive. So keep that in mind. Yeah. So validity is more than significance. Your test sample, really, you have to make sure that significance, let me start with significance. Significance is just a number that's telling you that it is statistically, there's a statistical difference between the two. And numbers can be manipulated, data can be manipulated to make things look good. Like if you have a massive lift, you need a much smaller sample size. But that isn't going to help you out too much. I mean, in terms of the stats, that makes everything look good. You get all those green lights. But that might not be a great representation of the whole. It might be just you had an influx in traffic one day where people were just buying, and that's not going to be what's going to be happening on Tuesday. So whenever you're running tests, you do need to think of things as, is the test a representation of the actual whole? Retest your campaigns to avoid statistical anomalies, or even tech anomalies that can occur as well. And then seriously just put those numbers into perspective. Again, these numbers are really in a vacuum. And then finally, this number 7 of the top 7 things people get wrong is their sample size is just too small, and this runs into the validity and statistical significance mix-up. So in here, this is an example of, yes, we have our green lights here, and look at the amount of conversions we're seeing. This is good. You're ready to go. But I've also seen others where people have said this was a great test, and they ran it out because it was a massive lift, and they were comparing this variation here that had 0 conversions to this one that has 3. So I know this isn't quite interactive, but if you can just say this out loud in your home office, wherever you are, like, really, what's wrong with this thing? What's wrong with this picture here? And it's that, one, the sample size is just too small. Like, it's about 100, averaging maybe around 155 people per variation. That's ridiculous. And there's only 5 total conversions. You can never, ever make any sort of assumptions off of 5 conversions. That's ridiculous. But because the compared variation with 0 conversions, when compared to 3 conversions, looks like it's the greatest lift that's ever been had.
Actually, there is the infinite, Justin.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the infinite right there.
Yeah. There's the whole space over there.
Yeah, it's. Did they break? I think they broke the internet there doing that. Is that what happens? Yeah. So
what I think is important here is for people to understand that there are things that they can do in this situation. What I've seen, when you have a low traffic, you might use the web personalization, for example, and on-exit pop-ups and other ways to catch people's attention, so that you can find out what makes them click, because persuasion could be even better than doing A/B testing. Persuading people so that they can decide to take the next step in your funnel. It's better when you have a low traffic.
Yeah, and you hit on, I think, one of the biggest misconceptions in conversion rate optimization is that I think people equate A/B testing with conversion optimization, but they're not interchangeable. A/B testing is a verification tool that within the kind of CRO experts tool belt, and things like personalization and other types of tech that are out there are going to definitely help when you have low traffic that you can't test. Remember, not all pages are test worthy, but definitely all pages are optimization worthy.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And so even there, the tech would have those nice green buttons that say it's good to go. Remember, the stats, that they're numbers in a vacuum. You have to put them in context, and as I was saying, big lifts require smaller sample sizes, which will then get them labeled significant. But if you kind of did a validity test there, it's going to fail. So I'll go briefly into how to not make these mistakes. I don't want to keep people past a half hour. For anybody that stayed past 4:30, thank you so much for sticking around. I'm really sorry about that 10-minute waiting period. I hope it was worth it. But here's how you can avoid these mistakes. For 1 to 5, here's what you have to do. Create a testing methodology that includes, 1, an analytics-inspired page selection process, and also a prioritization scale. That one's for the people who are still here. A qualitative approach to element selection, so what you'll be testing. And then detailed test scheduling that is in line with your sales cycle. If you do those things, those top 5 mistakes that I just listed, you're going to avoid. For number 6, be smarter than your testing technology. That's kind of like my mantra of 2014. Put the numbers in context, and remember, you need to select tests that are scalable, and then validate your results. And I'm really, when I was in college, I was really into logic and like doing meta systems and that type of stuff. And I just had a really logic nerd moment when I thought about the asynchronous relationship between validity and significance. It's similar to validity and soundness. Validity and soundness, where validity itself necessitates significance, whereas significance does not necessitate validity. So you can have something that's significant but not be valid, but whenever you have something that's valid, it will always be significant.
Yeah.
And then finally, test on larger sample sizes, and never call a test on these to have more than 100 conversions per variation. And if you don't have the traffic to do these things, as Valentin was saying, use all the other tools that exist out there to help persuade or help understand from a qualitative perspective to increase conversions. Because as I said, not all pages are test worthy, but all pages are optimization worthy.
Okay, that's very
good. So those are the 7 mistakes I see people make, even the pros. And thank you everybody for coming. Valentin, do you want to send them all off?
No. I think it's a good idea to. One thing is to stop sharing the screen, and then another thing is to ask these people, maybe they can put some questions.
Okay, cool.
So if you have any kind of questions, simply shout. Actually, till now the chat box was not working, so maybe now it's your time to put some questions. I can see there are some people which are actually active, although we've made some mistakes. Okay, so Ron asked us if we are still trying, but I think that was before actually, and that's not a good. Okay, so that's the first question. John put it. So I had a client call that disrupted my attendance. What would be the minimum sample size for testing?
Okay, that's always that's one of the most common questions I get, and I'm always so awkward still around it because there's so many variations or so many variables that can affect this. Um, I'd say if you aren't getting around, I mean, and Valentin, you can talk about some of your experiences, but if you're not getting maybe at least 5,000 uniques, I'd say it's not test worthy.
Yeah, I think it all has to do with the specific of your website. Because, for example, if you are in B2B, it's not so easy to get 5,000 unique and to wait, because maybe you have a PR company or whatever. What I think it's important here is to check if A/B testing is for you first. Maybe it's not for you. I think I haven't seen any test with below 2,000 unique visitors, which had a very dramatic change so far. But another way to take a look at this is how many conversions are you willing to get, because there's a cost of testing. So if you don't have enough sample size, you will check on this thing, you will try to do things, but at the end, maybe if you have 5 conversions per day and 150 per month, an uplift of 20%, which is not a small one, is not going to cover your effort and your cost. And I think that's how you should look at things. You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Oh, I think you really hit the nail on the head there when you're putting these things together and thinking about it in terms of a cost perspective. If you're not thinking about this in terms of a business perspective and how it will impact the bottom line, you're wasting your time. So I think that was well said. Perfect.
So
um,
Silvio asked us about some study cases. Yeah, so some case studies. I don't know. Justin, your time to shine.
I know. Yeah. What do you want to know?
I don't know, Silvio. Silvio put the question.
Yeah, Silvio, do you give me give me some parameters. I've seen tons of tests. I can try to give you something there. I don't have anything prepared in a presentation in terms of case studies, but I can share something of some kind. And I know on the blog you have case studies there as well listed if you want to have something to read. But yeah, if you can give
Maybe
me.
I can ask you a question about a case study. Which was the most outstanding difference in a variation that you've seen rather than in, so compared to the control version, which was the most dramatical change?
Most, I mean, I think the most dramatic change I've seen that when you, it's been in the maybe 300%. I've seen like in the thousands before, but those were tests that weren't done properly, essentially. But I mean, these kind of radical lifts that you see, they can get over sensationalized. So because that's not always the norm. It happens a lot when you have, when you were testing a non-tested page, or if you're just getting involved with it. So don't. I think when people are always looking for these massive lifts, I actually get a little bit more suspect from those, because I think that there might be something wrong with the numbers. Maybe it might be the sample size might not be large enough, or there's something going on there. I think there was one that I had seen that they claimed for a 1,400% increase, but that was based off of a very small conversion set.
Yeah.
So yeah, so those I love when we see big lifts. I don't expect to see things outside of double digits ever. Probably any roughly that often that are done correctly. So just case studies are fun, but keep in mind that some of the numbers that you see out there might be hiding something.
Yeah. Okay, that was very good, Justin, and thank you. Uh, I've so I don't want to take any time from these guys. Thank you everybody for staying with us. And hopefully next time we are not going to delay so much, and we are going to start using these kind of tech tools over the ocean, because I'm in Europe, Justin is there in the States, so next time we'll do our homeworks better. Yeah. Thank you all for staying, and see you next time. And don't forget that it's within your power to change your destiny, and also to change the destiny of your website and gather more from your existing target, your existing traffic. If you need any kind of assistance, drop us an email. And if you would like to test and do not just A/B testing, give Marketizator a shot. Okay, so Justin, we are barely seeing your face there. It's getting dark in the States as well.
Oh, could you see my face before?
Yeah.
I didn't even realize that. Yeah, I'm in a dark room now.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Okay. Bye now, everybody.